Happy Halloween, everybody. I like your masks. Give it up for my dear friend, Mr. Stevie Wonder. That's original Motown sound. I missed you too. That's why I came back. I love you back. We've got a great crew in your corner here in Michigan. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, Mayor Mike Duggan, Senator Debbie Stabenow, a man who's always fighting for you when you need him. You got to send him back to the Senate, Gary Peters. Three outstanding congresswomen who need to be sent back to the House, Brenda Lawrence, Elisa Slotkin, and Haley Stevens. And you also have the next president of the United States, Joe Biden. Come on. Come on. 3 days, Detroit. 3 days. 3 days until the most important election of our lifetimes. And that includes mine, which was pretty important. This Tuesday, everything is on the line. Our jobs are on the line. Healthcare is on the line. Whether we get this pandemic under control is on the line. And the good news is, on Tuesday, you can choose change. You can elect Joe Biden. You can elect Kamala Harris. You can choose a better America. And you don't have to wait until Tuesday to cast your ballot, Michigan. Because here in Michigan, you can vote in person right now. Go to iwillvote.com, find your polling place, go vote. If you've already voted, then what do? Go get your friends to vote. Get your family to make a plan to vote. We need everybody to turn out. This is a family affair. Detroit, Joe Biden is my brother. I love Joe Biden. He will be a great president. I'll admit, 12 years ago, when I asked him to serve as the nominee for vice president, I didn't know him all that well. We had served in the Senate together, but he had been there a while. I was still fairly new. He and I came from different places. We came from different generations. But I came to admire Joe as a man who is decent to his core, a man who learned early on to treat everybody with dignity and everybody with respect, somebody who lived by the words his mom taught him. No one's better than you, Joe, but you're no better than anybody else. And that decency, that empathy, that belief that everybody counts, that's really who Joe is. And the good news is that's who he'll be when he's president. Because I can tell you something, the presidency doesn't actually change who you are. It just reveals who you are. And I saw who Joe was. And I saw how seriously he took the work. And I saw how critical it was from his perspective to make sure that the voices of ordinary families were in the room when decisions were being made. And for 8 years, Joe was the last one in the room whenever I faced a big decision. He made me a better president. He's got the character and experience to make us a better country. And he and Kamala are going to be in the fight, not for themselves, but for every single one of us. And you know what? You can't say that about the president we got right now. I mean, look, I knew Donald Trump wasn't going to agree with me, that he wasn't going to embrace my vision. I understood he wasn't going to continue my policies, but I did hope that he was going to show some interest in taking the job seriously. Right? I mean, if you get elected president, if you run for president and you become president, the assumption is you are going to take the job seriously. That you're going to understand the solemn obligation when you are sworn into office. But he never took it seriously. He hasn't shown any interest in just doing the work or helping anybody but himself or his friends, or treating the presidency as anything more than a reality show to give him the attention that he craves so desperately. And the rest of us have had to live with the consequences. Almost 230,000 Americans have died. More than 100,000 small businesses have closed. Almost 300,000 jobs are gone in Michigan alone. America just had its single worst week of new cases. We've been living with this thing for months now. And we just had the worst week in terms of incidents. And in the face of that, what is Donald Trump's closing argument? No, he says that people are too focused on COVID. COVID, 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 he's complaining. He's jealous of COVID's media coverage. But that's not enough. Now he's starting to accuse doctors of profiting off of this pandemic. He actually said this. He said they're making a big deal out of it so they can make more money. Who says that? Here, you've got doctors who are risking their lives to save other people, who have to, every time they go in and then they come home, they have to completely isolate themselves, remove all their protective garments, shower, scrub, do everything just to make sure their own families don't get sick. In some cases, don't get to see their families. And he's saying they're doing that to make a buck. He can't fathom that somebody would be willing to make sacrifices for others unless there was some economic motivation. That's how he thinks. And now we've got his chief of staff saying, he said this on TV, said, we're not going to control the pandemic. Just flat out just said, we're not going to control it. We noticed. Yes, you're right. And that's why we've got to have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House, because you're not going to control the pandemic. They just got kind of like I guess I'm dating myself. You guys remember Mad Magazine? The older people do. Remember, and then you had Alfred E. Newman. Remember, he had that big grin, funny-looking dude, ears like mine. And he used to say, "What me worry?" He didn't worry about anything. That's how these guys are. Why should I be worried? The same way, you remember when Republicans were saying, "Let Detroit go bankrupt." You remember that? And now they might as well just be saying, "Let America get COVID. It's not our problem. You're exaggerating it." That's what they are literally saying every day. Listen, if Trump were focused on COVID from the beginning, cases wouldn't be reaching new record highs across the country. And some of the places he's holding rallies have seen new spikes after he leaves town. He's going around having events, big events, no masks, no protective gear, no precautions. What's his obsession with crowds anyway? I mean, he's still worrying. He is still talking about his inauguration crowd being small, although he doesn't admit it. Does he have nothing better to worry about? That was 4 years ago. I mean, what kind of trauma did he go through? Did no one come to his birthday parties when he was a kid? Is Fox News not giving him enough attention? Lord. And that's the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump right there. Trump cares about feeding his ego. Joe cares about keeping you safe and your family safe and getting this country moving again. And that's why you've got to make sure that every single one of you vote. Look, this pandemic would have been challenging for any president. But this idea that somehow this White House has done anything but completely screw this up, well, the facts say otherwise. Canada, right across the way. Used to be you could go there, remember? Can't go right now. Turns out this administration was building a wall to keep us in by bungling this pandemic. Canada identified its first case the same week that the U.S. did. The same week. Our mortality rate, the number of people who die per capita, is 2.5 times higher. If we had the same mortality rate as they do, then around 90,000 Americans would have died, which would still be a tragedy, but it wouldn't be 230,000. If we had handled this pandemic like Canada did, 140,000 of our fellow Americans might still be alive today. That's a sign of how much leadership in the White House matters. It matters. This is not a game. This is not a contest of just, calling each other names. This isn't a sporting event. This is life or death. And last week, when Donald Trump was asked, would you do anything differently? He said, not much. Not much. Not really. You can't think of anything you do differently? Look, there is not a thing I did as president where I didn't look back and say, man, I could have done that a little bit better. I could have done it. Even the stuff that worked. He can't think of one thing? Not one thing. Oh, Lord. Look, I understand this is a president who wants full credit for the economy he inherited and gets zero blame for the pandemic he ignored, but the job doesn't work that way. Tweeting at the TV doesn't fix things. Making stuff up doesn't make people's lives better. You've got to have a plan. You've got to do the work. And along with the experience to get things done, Joe Biden has concrete plans and policies that will turn our vision of a better, fairer, stronger country into reality. Joe Biden is not going to screw up testing. He's not going to call scientists idiots. He's not going to host super spreader rallies around the country or in the White House. Joe will get this pandemic under control with a plan to make testing free and widely available and get a vaccine to every American cost-free and make sure our frontline heroes never have to ask other countries for the equipment that they need. His plan will guarantee paid sick leave for workers and parents affected by the pandemic and make sure that the small businesses that hold our communities together and employ millions of Americans can reopen safely. Small businesses in every community, not just some communities, not just big corporations. Donald Trump likes to claim he built this economy. America created 1.5 million more jobs in the last 3 years of the Obama-Biden administration than in the first 3 years of the Trump-Pence administration. That's a fact. That was before he could blame the pandemic. Joe Biden and I worked to rescue the auto industry. Gary Peters was there. Debbie Stabenow was there. Gary Peters understood what was at stake. He told us to bet on Michigan, and we did. And manufacturing grew in Michigan by 15% over our final 4 years in office. Donald Trump came in. He said, I'm going to make Michigan the manufacturing hub of the world. It's up 1% under his first 4 years. 15 to 1. We handed him the longest streak of job growth in American history. But the economic damage that he's inflicted by botching the pandemic response means he'll be the only president since Herbert Hoover to actually lose jobs. Herbert Hoover, that's the 30s. That's a long time ago. Well, been a lot of presidents since Herbert Hoover. He'll be the first one to lose jobs during his presidency. Joe Biden and Gary Peters know that the key to a strong economy, it's not tax cuts for billionaires. It's lifting the prospects of working Americans. And Joe's got a plan to create 1 million new auto-related jobs by accelerating electric vehicle production. He's going to create 10 million good, clean energy jobs to fight climate change and secure environmental justice. And he's going to pay for it by rolling back Trump's tax cuts for billionaires. Joe Biden sees this as a moment not just to get back to where we were. He wants to build on the progress we made during our administration, and he wants to take it further. He wants to make long overdue changes so that our economy actually works for everybody, makes life a little easier for everybody. The waitress trying to raise a kid on her own. The student trying to figure out how to pay for next semester's classes. The shift worker always on the edge of getting laid off. The cancer survivor who's worried about her pre-existing conditions protections being taken away. Love you, appreciate you. I really do. And I'm grateful. Listen, let's talk about health care for a second. Republicans love to say right before an election, they'll protect your pre-existing conditions. Right. Joe and I actually protected them 10 years ago with the Affordable Care Act. We didn't get Republican votes, not one. And Republicans have tried to repeal or undermine the Affordable Care Act more than 60 times. Why they want to take people's health care away is not clear to me. I don't know why you'd have that kind of spirit say, you know what, I want to make sure that person doesn't have health care. I don't know why they would think that way. And when they're asked about it, they say, no, we're going to repeal it, but we're going to replace it with something even better, even bigger, more beautiful. They've promised a new plan for 10 years now. No plan. For 2 years, when this new president came into office, he had a Republican Congress. Could have passed this beautiful new plan. Didn't happen. They still don't have a plan. When they're asked about it, nobody can find it. They're looking around. It's the same place they put the pandemic playbook that we gave them to tell them how to deal with a pandemic. It's lost. It's gone. Missing. Instead, they've just attacked the Affordable Care Act at every turn, driving up costs, driving up the uninsured. Now they've got a case. Chairman. Here. I'm not going to stand on the. What kind? No. What's that? Can you hear the mic? Charge on the mic.
Mike needs Obamacare.
Shout out to all the Detroit healthcare workers. And the insurance policy that we need is to make sure that we've got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in there, and that we've got Gary Peters, because we cannot allow anyone to take away health care right in the middle of a pandemic. They may try to get the Supreme Court to take away your health care and just have an empty promise to take its place. You've got Mitch McConnell pouring millions of outside super PAC dollars into Michigan to try to beat Gary Peters. But Detroit, Joe and Kamala and Gary will protect your health care. They will expand Medicare. They'll make insurance more affordable for everybody. And they'll make sure that our health care workers and our frontline workers have the protections they need. If you vote. Now here's one other thing that's important. You know, Joe and Kamala, when they're in the White House, you won't have to just think about them every day. They won't be trying to get your attention every day. You're not going to have to just shake your head and slap your forehead every day. It won't be so exhausting. You will be able to go about your lives knowing that the president is working. And you're not going to have to worry about a president who suggests that maybe we inject bleach as a cure for COVID. You won't have a president who's retweeting conspiracy theories that Navy SEALs didn't actually kill bin Laden. We won't have a president who's going to go out of his way to insult anybody who doesn't agree with him. You won't have a president who just makes stuff up every day, multiple times a day. Probably doing it right now as we speak. It is not normal behavior. We would not tolerate it from a high school principal. We wouldn't tolerate it from a coach. We wouldn't tolerate it from a coworker. Can you imagine if you were working for somebody and they just lied every day? At a certain point, you'd be like, you know what, we would fire him. Why would we accept this from the President of the United States? Because there are consequences to this. There are consequences to his actions. They embolden people to be mean and divisive and racist and affrays the fabric of our society and our lives. It affects how our children see things and how they interact. It affects the way our families get along. It affects the way the world looks at America. That's why Joe talks about the soul of America. And that's, more than anything, is what separates him from his opponent. He cares about every American, not just some. And he cares about the values that make this country exceptional. I know Joe Biden. He does not have a mean-spirited bone in his body. He cares about everybody's story. He wants to hear everybody's voice. He tries to live by the values that we cherish: honesty and hard work, kindness and humility, responsibility, helping out somebody who's having a hard time. You know, when I hear this kind of phony, macho, you know, acting tough, snarling all the time, that's not what it used to be to be a man, a father, a leader. You didn't go around bragging all the time. You didn't go around putting other people down. And Joe understands that. And when you elect Joe, that's what you'll see reflected in the White House. And these shouldn't be Republican values or Democratic values. They're what our parents taught us, what our grandparents taught us. It's what we still try to pass on to our kids. They're not white values or black values or Latino or Asian or Native American values. They're American values. And we have to reclaim them. But to do that, we're going to have to turn out like never before. To reclaim what's best in this country, we can leave no doubt. We cannot afford to be complacent. Not this time. Not in this election. Last time we were complacent, some of us. Some of us said, you know, I don't need to bother voting. And listen, I understand why Americans get frustrated sometimes. They think government might not make a difference. Because government's not perfect. Elected officials, even the best, aren't perfect. Government's not going to solve every problem, but it can make things better. A president can't solve every economic problem by himself, but if we elect people like Gary Peters and Brenda Lawrence and Alyssa Slotkin and Haley Stevens, and we get a House and a Senate that's more focused on working people and getting you the help you need, we can make things better. It can make a difference. Some more folks will get jobs. Some young people will get more opportunity. Some folks will be able to afford a college education. Some folks will be able to go to and get an apprenticeship and get a trade. You know, a president by himself can't eliminate all racial bias in our criminal justice system. Electing me didn't end. It didn't make us post-racial. But you know what? It can, if we elect district attorneys and states attorneys and sheriffs focused on equality and justice, and we have a Justice Department that reinvigorates the Civil Rights Division, it can make things better, and then maybe some folks won't be subject to some of the tragedies that we've seen over these last few months. And that's what voting's about. It's not about making things perfect. It's about making things better. And better's good. Putting us on track so that a generation from now we can look back and say, you know what, right about then we turned the corner and we started back on a better trajectory. The fact that we don't get 100% of what we want is not a good reason not to vote. It's a reason to keep voting until we do get it right. You know, on average, just over 50% of us vote. 50%. You've got almost half of eligible voters not voting. And so those are some of the same folks complaining. But imagine if 60% of us voted. Imagine if 70% of us voted. Imagine January 20th, and we swear in a president and a vice president who have a plan to get us out of this mess, who care about working Americans, and have a plan to help you start getting ahead, who believe in science, who have a plan to protect this planet for our kids, who believe in racial equality, and are willing to do the work to bring us closer to an America where no matter what we look like or where we come from or who we love or how much money we got, everybody's got dignity. Everybody's treated with respect. Everybody's got a chance to raise a family. Michigan, that can happen. And I'm asking you to remember what this country can be. The thing is, though, we can't just imagine a better future. We've got to fight for it. We got to out-hustle the other side. We got to get to work. We got to vote up and down the ticket like never before. We've got to leave no doubt about who we are and what this country stands for. And if we do, we will send Gary Peters back to the Senate. We'll send Brenda Lawrence and Alyssa Slotkin and Hallie Stevens back to the House. And we will elect a man who loves this country, who cares about you, who will fight for every single one of us. My friend, a real leader, the next president of the United States of America, Joe Biden!